I did.
That's okay.
And then I just share my screen.
Yep.
Right, okay.
All right, well, have fun. I'll be in the back.
Okay. And we're live?
You are live. Can the audience hear us? You can message us in the chat.
Hello, everybody. Oh, awesome. I see. Oh, hi, Tabitha. Bruce, welcome. We're glad that you could join us today. We have two of us here, Rick and myself, and our two chairs. One is unable to join us. He had an emergency, but Ray is trying to work his way into the session right now. He's having a few difficulties, so I hope he joins us. We wanted to welcome you all to our presentation for Region 10, and we're really happy that you came. I know that this is a Region 9 focus conference, but one of the beautiful things that's happening, I think, in the world these days is that we are learning that there's strength in numbers and there's power in really reaching out and building our relationships. And that's something that as tribal people we've done for eons. And so we're really not doing anything new here, but we wanted to kind of break through the old tried and true ways of working and branch out and get to know our neighbors a little bit. And so we will start our presentation. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And as I do that, I'll start with an introduction. And perhaps, Rick, would you like to start with your introduction first while I get this set up?
Sure. My name is Rick Eichstad. I'm an attorney. I'm based in Spokane, Washington, and I serve as the policy analyst for the Region 10 RTOC's Tribal Caucus.
Great. Thank you, Rick. Can you guys see my screen? It's not seeming to.
I cannot.
We cannot at the moment. Did you press the share screen button and then the little icon and you selected the window you want?
I selected the window, Microsoft PowerPoint, and it's not sharing.
Does Rick happen to have the PowerPoint?
I don't. I could try to pull it up. Hang on.
Seems like every session, one person in the group can't share something for one reason or another. So, the audience, we apologize.
Randy, why don't you introduce yourself while I try to do this?
Okay. I sent it recently in the email, so you should have it there.
Okay.
Okay. Well, I will do my introduction. So my name is Randi Madison. My native name is Nanochak, and that means new polar bear in Inupiaq. My family comes from Point Hope, Alaska, which is on the very northwestern point of the state. It's a jut of a rocky piece of land that goes out 30 miles into the Arctic Ocean, or to the Chukchi Sea, actually, surrounds it. And my family is still involved with traditional whaling and subsistence hunting for ugruk, which is the bearded seal, and shorebirds and their eggs and all the other wonderful things that come with the tundra. I live currently in near Chugiak, Alaska, which is in just north of Anchorage. And I have two great kids, and I'm married and have served on the RTOC for probably going on about 9.5 years now. Along with Rick, I believe we have about the same record. He was here a little earlier than I was, but we have a long history here, and we've seen it through a number of different presidential administrations. And as you know, it changes rapidly when changes happen at the administration level. So we'll tell you a little bit about our history, but we won't go too deep into it. If we can get the PowerPoint to share.
It is not working with my computer.
Okay.
It only gives me the option of trying to share this.
Okay.
I just shared my email. If one of you can just quickly send it to me, I can go ahead and share.
Okay, I'll do that real quick. Thank you, Christopher.
No worries. That's why I'm here. Knock on wood, it works for me. So it's been working for me most of the day. So
good. All right, I'm going to pop that into the email.
Cool. Maybe it's a Region 10, Region 9 thing.
It could be.
I'm just joking.
Okay. Going here. All right. There we go. All right. And as that gets delivered, I'll just continue to talk a little bit about it. Who we're missing today is our chairman. His name is Raymond Paddock. He lives in Juneau, Alaska. And I believe Ray has served as our tribal chair for, oh goodness, about 4 years maybe. And he's been doing an excellent job. We've been kind of doing some groundbreaking programming and really trying to expand our outreach. Ray lives in Juneau, as if you don't know, is in Southeast Alaska and is the environmental, I believe, manager for his tribe. Our other co-chair is Aaron Miles, and Aaron is from the Nez Perce tribe in Idaho, northern Idaho. Aaron has also been with the RTOC for at least 8 years, I know, perhaps more, serving in various positions as primary and alternate. He regrets to inform me that he couldn't join us today. So the next thing I wanted to bring up is, we have this unique opportunity right now with this administration. And we really wanted to maximize on the power of our tribes to comment and make a big difference in how policies coming from EPA and practices are conducted. And I think it's just sort of a kismet thing that this happened so easily and well, but we were able to meet up with Region 6, which is Southwest or South Central United States, and Region 9. And together we represented about, I think it was 419 or something tribes out of the 574 federally recognized. So what we're doing right now is we're really trying to reach out and build these relationships with Region 9, get to know how you do things, how do you run your RTOC, what are your issues in your area, how are there ways that we could continue to work together to support each other and make a bigger impact on how things are run. 485, thank you. Yeah, 485 between us. It was 419, I believe, with just regions 9 and 10. So huge number.
Any luck on the PowerPoint?
I have not.
Oh, yay! Okay. Just let me know when you like to advance the slide, and we can.
All right. Can you go to slideshow? Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
Right. Have fun.
Awesome. Thank you. Hooray! You saved the day. I was starting to feel like I was babbling, so let's go to the second slide. So here's the number that we had, strength in numbers. So together with regions, just Region 9 and 10, we are 73% of our nation's tribes. And although our RTOCs do not speak for our tribes, we serve that many tribes. And I know that both regions do an excellent job at reaching out to the large number of tribes that we do represent in order to get consensus and feedback on the comments that we make. And you can go to the next slide, please. So in an effort to get to know you and for you to know us, we're going to take a moment to describe a little bit about our history, our tribes, our unique aspects, and our unique tribal environmental issues. We're also going to invite you guys to educate us on some of the environmental issues that you're seeing in Region 9. And then we will encourage a chat discussion to offer up suggestions on how our two regions can collaborate. Go ahead and advance. So a little bit about Region 10. Can you go back to the last slide, please?
1 second, sorry.
Oh, no problem.
Is it good?
Oh yeah, that's okay. We can just touch on this. This is general information that I believe everybody knows. However, it's never a bad idea to just state it in the beginning. You know, what is the RTOC? I believe that if everybody could give a little thumbs up in the chat, you could just let us know. Is there anybody out there who does not know what the RTOC is or what it does? If I see nothing, I'll just continue. We're all familiar with what we're doing here, serving our tribes. And we just always highlight that the RTOC does never substitutes for government to government consultation. And we always do our very best to encourage our tribes to reach out directly for proper government to government consultation with the EPA. In our region, we have 4 states, Alaska, Oregon, Washington, and Idaho. In the numbers there represent the number of federally recognized tribes in each state. And we also have 23 consortia in our region that receives IGAP funding. Next slide. Just a general overview. Some of our members here. Our primary members are stated, and you can see the various villages and tribal councils that they work for. These are our NTOC members. We have 4 plus their alternates. And as you know, the National Tribal Operations Committee was created to more effectively implement the agency's Indian policy, which I understand they are reaffirming with vigor this year. The NTOC is also composed of EPA's senior leadership team, which is the EPA administrator, the assistant and regional administrators, and the 19 tribal representatives from the 10 regions where the governments are located. Next slide. Here's a list of our primary representatives in the RTOC. We have 7 primary members and their alternates. So altogether, I believe we have 22 members, primaries, and alternates. Go ahead and go to the next. Although it's a little bit difficult to see, we have the little green dots here that indicate where our members live. And because we cover such a huge area, that you can see in the graphic, we really have to make an effort when we are recruiting our alternate positions to spread them out across the state. So we try our hardest not to have folks from the same tribe, although that does happen. But especially in Alaska, we have so much area to cover. We really try to encourage, if somebody's elected and they live in Southeast, for instance, that they reach out to somebody who is in an area that doesn't have a rep that lives close. So we've tried our hardest. It's a big state, but I think we've done a good job at that. And then if you do happen to want to check out our website and see all of our tribes listed out by name, they are there at that link. And I did include the link at the very beginning and in the chat of this session. And you could just check it out. We have all of the contact information for each one of our members listed there as well, and contact information for myself and Rick. I will do this slide, and then I think Rick, maybe I'll switch over to you if that's okay. Or no, I'll do the next few, and then we'll have you jump in. Sorry,
Sure.
our flow's off a little bit without Ray and Aaron here. So some of the ways, that we interact with our tribes here are that we definitely, submit a fair share of comments on EPA policy and rulemaking. Rick, do you want to speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, we as RTOC are often directed by tribes, to provide comments. Occasionally, we're asked to support tribes in commenting on various proposals. For example, a cleanup plan, under Superfund, or and we also will work with our members to put together templates for comments that tribes can use. And I'll talk about this later, but many of you know that their EPA is seeking comment on gap allocation. So we put together a template of a comment letter that tribes can at least start with to put together their own comments. So that's in addition, at our more meetings that we have with EPA, we will provide substantive comments on EPA proposals. Again, we make it clear that when we provide comments or when we meet with EPA, that's certainly not consultation. EPA has a duty to consult one-on-one with tribal governments.
Oh, can we go back to the last slide real quick? The other thing that we do is we try to host at least 2 meetings a year on tribal lands. And this is a great opportunity for a tribe to host our meeting. And in the past, what we've experienced when this happens is that the EPA membership of the RTOC has an opportunity to see what's going on right down at the ground level with the tribe. Oftentimes, we're provided with traditional foods, or we're provided with traditional songs, traditional dances. We get to go out on the land. We get to see things, touch things, feel, smell, experience things firsthand. And that can be very powerful. So that's the one thing that we try to do in non-COVID situations, is to go out and really experience the land that, is in our region. The other thing we do, we just started implementing actually, and have our first town hall style meeting scheduled for next week. This is a new effort for us to get to have regular interactions directly between our members and the tribes that they represent. So we've broken it up into 7 different individual virtual meetings. And this is bound by geographical location mostly. And our members will have an opportunity to just kind of talk one-on-one with each other. At these town hall meetings, it's only the tribal caucus interacting with the tribes. And so it's an opportunity to be candid, to hash out anything that's going on, and try to find solutions in ways that the RTOC can help address the issues that are happening on their lands. We have a full website and 3 social media pages. We have Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. We update and hire a IT person and a social media specialist to address quick releases and quick updates to our media. And we feel like that's a necessity, especially with the vast amount of area that we cover. And in this virtual world, you can't really get away from needing to have those things in order to communicate well. And then finally, our annual Tribal Environmental Leaders Summit, very much like this conference, is going to be held in March of 2022. Originally, it was scheduled for last month, but we were unable to go, and we didn't want to jeopardize some of our cultural presenters, given the high rates of COVID and the Delta variant. So we rescheduled to March. It's a virtual event. You're all invited to join us. It's a very inexpensive event, $60 for adults professionals and $30 for youth and elders. Next slide will tell us a little bit more about it. This is this year's logo. We always seek to employ, not employ, but to compensate a traditional Native artist to do our logos, and the logo changes every year for us for our event. This particular logo here is explained in the text, which you're welcome to check out. And I also did post the links for registration and speaker and presenter proposals in the chat at the very beginning as well. So we really hope that you guys will check us out. It's a 3-day summit this year, as mentioned above, and we aim to have about 5 hours of programming per day. So some things that are unique to our region is that we have decided a while in, we're on our 25th year now in Region 10. It's our 25th anniversary this year. That the original structure of RTOC wasn't working well for us. We were one tribe used to manage the grant that was awarded by EPA, and every so often the grant would change hands, and I was experienced this twice in my time here where it changed hands and we lost everything. We had to start from scratch. We had to build new websites. We had to recover documents. There were just a lot of really difficult hills to climb, given that there's so many changes that happen with the federal administration when the president changes. But when we had to change hands, we were unable to have a continuum of care per se for the way that our grant was run. And so in 2016, the group decided that they would like to form a consortium of tribes. And so this design has, after 4 years now, almost 5 years of operating as a consortium, has proven to be very successful at eliminating those challenges of changing hands between tribe to tribe. The other thing that it enabled us to do is in 2020, we decided to establish the consortium as a nonprofit. And so as a nonprofit, we are able to now reach out to other sources of funding. And I know that this graphic is really hard to read because it's small, but before we were limited to really only using funding from the IGAP to run our program. And although we haven't yet gotten to the point where we're able to add other sources of funding, we know that it's there and that we're able to do that probably in the next few years after we get all of our footing down for this new organization. Rick, do you want to speak to any of this?
I think you got it. Okay,
great. We also employ 2 full-time staff. One is myself serving as the executive director of the nonprofit, and then I have an assistant who works full-time as well. And then we employ between 3 to 6 contractors. One is Rick as our policy analyst. We have an IT professional. We have a Tribal Leaders Summit event coordinator. We currently have a cultural liaison for our event. So each year that we have our Tribal Leaders Summit, we rotate between states, and each time we try to employ also a local person to help us build the connections and relationships with the local tribes. So it's a good group. Next slide. In general, Rick, why don't you do this? I feel like I've been talking quite a bit.
Sure. So some of the things that make Region 10 unique, obviously 3 states, but there's transboundary issues with Canada. Folks, particularly up, tribal communities up in the panhandle of Alaska are facing right now potential impacts associated with mining on the Canadian side of the international border. Here in Washington state, there's likewise transboundary pollution issues associated with mining proposals up in Canada. There's a enormous impacts associated with a smelter on the Canadian side that much of the upper Columbia River that impacts the Colville Reservation is listed Superfund site. And water quality is impacted by international agreements between the United States and Canada over the operation of dams on the Columbia River on both sides of the border. So tribes are trying to, work with federal agencies and the State Department to try to address those. One of the other really unique aspects of Region 10 is there's a number of tribes in Oregon, Washington, and Idaho that have treaty rights that were negotiated by in the 1850s by someone named Isaac Stevens that have unique hunting and fishing rights, but particularly the right of hunting and fishing and gathering outside of reservation boundaries. So what that means is often tribes in Region 10 aren't only concerned about what's going on within their exterior boundaries of the reservation, but they're concerned about, what is the state doing and how can that impact, hunting, fishing, gathering rights. Obviously, if those resources are polluted, those rights are fairly meaningless. If you can't eat the fish because they're polluted, then there's a real problem. So, next slide. Randy, you want to get this one?
Sure. Yeah, since I'm here in Alaska.
Yeah.
So we do have some unique issues with our Alaska tribes. As you know, there's only one, well, you may not know this, there's only one official reservation in Alaska, which is Metlakatla, and the rest are individual tribal government, village governments. We also have the issue of Alaska Native corporations who do not and are not able to do government-to-government consultation, as they are corporations, not government entities. We have people living in extremely remote conditions where internet and phone connectivity is very sparse or spotty or unavailable at all from time to time. It's extremely expensive. The costs incurred with living a mainstream life of going to the store and buying all your goods is almost impossible. Therefore, our reliance on subsistence hunting and fishing and gathering is extremely heightened in these areas. Sometimes a gallon of milk can cost up to $10 for folks, while soda and sweets usually are extremely cheap. So we have health issues that are related to this as well. Some of our environmental programs in these villages, which may only be a couple hundred people, are just would be non-existent without the gap funding. We would have no ability to run a program to address any of our needs without it. So it's extremely important and very, very much relied on in our smaller villages. And in some of these smaller villages, their environmental departments are one person. So if the IGAP were to be gone for some reason, or if it were to be reduced to or changed in their allocations, for instance, going by size of a village or a government, we would be kind of up a creek without a paddle there. So Rick will talk about that a little bit later when we talk about the allocations.
And can I just speak to this for a minute, Randy?
Yep.
Yeah. So as Randy said, there's, the Alaska Native Claims Settlement Act essentially abolished, the tribal land base in Alaska. And so, with the exception of one reservation, there are no reservations, there are no trust land, which obviously, if you don't have a reservation, if there's no exterior boundaries of a reservation or trust land, you're not eligible for most tribal funding programs other than GAP. So, think about your Clean Water Act programs, 106, 319, Clean Air Act funds, quite a bit of funding that's available for reservation lands are not available. So most Alaska Native villages, the only funding that they have available to address, their needs and concerns, are that GAP funds.
And as we all know, working with the GAP, it's only for developing the capacity of the tribe and not for addressing specific programs, with the exception of solid waste. Okay, next slide. So we meet monthly via conference call or video now. We generally have our monthly meetings the third Thursday of the month at 1 o'clock Pacific time. That can change from month to month. So if you had any desire to join us, you're always welcome to email me and confirm. Perhaps you would want to sit in as a guest and not participate, or perhaps you have something you'd like to discuss to add to our discussion, and we'd be happy to consider that. We meet in person quarterly on non-COVID years. And like I said before, we distribute the locations between at least 2 on tribal lands and 2 at EPA headquarters in Seattle for Region 10. And go ahead to the next slide. So we'd kind of like to pause. I know that there's not a ton of folks on this call, but I wanted to know, it looks like Tabitha's here, and I believe Tabitha is Region 6, so you're welcome to comment too. What are your most pressing environmental challenges? If you wanted to just put that in your chat or address, let's start with one question at a time. What are your most pressing environmental challenges in your region? And that's a tough question because they're all pressing and important. But if you could just, just shoot off some ideas. No one wants to participate. What about the next question? What is your RTOC really good at doing? And if you serve on the RTOC, toot your horn. Tell us what you're doing that you think is working in your region. We're here to learn from you as well. Jurisdictional issues, Tabitha says, and collaboration with EPA. Awesome. Wildfires, WOTUS changes, trying to figure out gap allocations.
Yeah.
All of the above. And that's mining and mining cleanup. Yes. So see, when you share things like this and we hear them, it's similar for us, I think, across the nation. It certainly rings true for us here in Region 10. Each one of those topics are our biggest environmental challenges and concerns as well. And I wanted to know also what makes your tribes unique, and if you could. I know that Tabitha had mentioned, Oklahoma with the new change in, Rick could speak to this better, but the change in jurisdiction of the state is very much treated like Alaska tribes, correct? In Oklahoma now because of the land base issue. Tabitha, can you share a little bit about that in the chat? I think that you guys have, I can't remember the law, that changed it for Oklahoma tribes, but it was recently in the news. At any rate, we all have things that are unique to our regions and makes us special and unique and different. But I think the most important thing is that we're realizing our most pressing environmental challenges are not unique to our regions. Yes, it was the McGirt. And Lisa has commented in the chat. So yeah, it's interesting the things that we're dealing with. So we deal with transboundary issues with Canada. Region 6 and 9 deal with transboundary issues with Mexico. We have a lot of similarities. And if we could go to the next slide, please. And this leads us to our, closing slides. We have a few more after this, but not many. So one thing that we found, and I believe that Lisa and Tabitha could both speak to this, is that when we had this opportunity to come together to talk about the allocations, which Rick will talk about in a second, the comment on how EPA has consulted about how they do their allocations for IGAP, we discovered that this is something that we need to be doing on a regular basis. And I'm really excited to hear that everyone in each region wanted this as well as we did. And we are going to be meeting and shooting for our quarterly meeting between regions 6, 9, and 10. And we will be extending the invitation to all other regions. And I think that this can be a really tremendous start in making us stronger. There's no way that it cannot make us stronger by sharing these types of things and by coming together to collaborate. So we can also be a resource for each other. One of the things that I'm always interested in as the director of the grant is how are other regions running their RTOCs? I have no idea, and it's so interesting for me to see what are the best practices. Well, maybe Region 9's doing something that we could totally augment for Region 10, or perhaps vice versa. Maybe we're doing something different that you guys feel could be a huge benefit to the way your RTOC is run. So it's really about sharing and making us stronger. And then, of course, learning about others increases our awareness. So we're not isolated in a vacuum and thinking that it's only our region that's dealing with something. We have a bigger scope of view. And go ahead into the next slide. I know we only have about 10 minutes left. I wanted to make time. Go ahead, Rick. This is you.
Sure. So I think, and this has come up, and a really good example of where, the RTOCs from Region 9, 10, and 6 have actually met to collaborate. Hopefully folks know EPA is considering a new method to allocate gap funding. Not a lot of details, some questions that have been raised in their consultation letter, and a copy of that is included in the documents. It's a July 20th, 2021 letter from EPA to tribal leaders. But some of the questions suggest that, factors such as geographic size, demographics, presence of pollution sources could be a factor in determining allocation of grant funds. In other words, if you're a small tribe or have a small land base, or perhaps even a highly allotted reservation, that could potentially factor into the amount of funds that could be received. We just don't know. I mean, it was a fairly generic list of questions without a lot of details. So given the urgency, the three RTOCs came together and drafted what we saw as some criteria for EPA to consider, including the fact we didn't see any harm in or any problems in how it's currently being allocated. And there needs to be more time. and and EPA should not diminish any current grants in the process of this. So comments on this are due. The consultation process ends November 17th. This is on the initial questions. I should also mention, and this just came out, and there's information again about this in the attached documents to this presentation. EPA is having what's described as a final consultation and coordination webinar on the national allocation next Wednesday from 2 to 3 p.m. Eastern Time. Now, we always say in Region 10, and I'm sure some of you might echo this, that these mass webinars can't be consultation. Yeah, I appreciate Lisa's comment, quote unquote consultation. Yeah, that's not consultation. The one thing I would urge tribes to consider is, and this might have changed, but we have heard that not a lot of tribes have actually requested consultation on this. So, if you're a tribe that depends on GAP funds, if you're concerned about it, I would really urge you to consider, government to government consultation with EPA. So, please consider that. And information, as I said, about this proposal is in the documents. So next slide. This is currently how GAP funds are allocated in the nation. So you can see Region 10, Region 9, and Region 6, the three regions that signed on to the letter, and again, that's in the documents, represent, the three biggest recipients of GAP funds in the country, and certainly a bulk of the funding. It's, I think, over $50 million of the 66, more than 50 million of the 66 million is represented by those three regions. So anyway, next slide. And this just goes roughly through, and I think folks probably know this, but roughly, the allocation to region is determined by 110,000 times the number of federally recognized tribes in a region, and that's generally how allocation is currently set. There's some other funds that come off of that, but that's generally what occurs now. Okay, next slide. So this echoes just a few of the considerations that are reflected in the letter that the three regions put together, that there needs to be increased time for review. Many of us were dealing with other crises, COVID-19, wildfires across the West, other crises. There needs to be proper consultation. Again, this email from EPA that was sent on behalf of Joanne Chase, webinars aren't consultation. Has there been time for real government to government consultation? The regions think that the RTOCs that signed on the letter believe the existing GAP allocation is a fair and reasonable process, and that anything new can't harm tribes that have been getting funding. And we really view that as, no reduction in current funding. The good news is there's going to be more GAP funding, that's been provided in the budget. So, maybe we talk about how that should be allocated. But many of us who rely on GAP funding have not seen any sort of substantial increase in years. It does not track with the increases in the cost of living with inflation. So already we're struggling as the amounts stay the same over the years. Really that's a decrease in the amount of funding. So anyway, next slide. All right, I think that's it. Again, my contact information, if folks can't access the documents and want a copy of the 3 regions letter that was sent on the gap allocation, if you need any of the other documents that I mentioned and can't access the documents, please let us know. If you need more information about Region 10, please let in the RTOC, please let Randi and I know.
Yes. And we just have a few more minutes to address if there's any questions or comments. Some of the comments, Rick, if you were presenting at the time, but one of the comments that was made is what will consultation with the tribe get us? Has consultation ever changed EPA's mind? And further comments were the entire structure that the feds have built to conduct consultation is on a road to nowhere. It does not satisfy the merit of consultation, nor does it complement the government-to-government relations, trust responsibility, etc. And these are things that our RTOC has discussed in perpetuity for many years. And so my suggestion to Lisa and Mervyn is that we bring this up at our next inter-RTOC meeting. So we appreciate you all coming. I know it's getting, this may be the last day of the conference. You might be zoomed out by now. Please don't hesitate to reach out to us. We encourage you to please join us at our Tribal Leaders Summit coming up in May. We encourage you to reach out to us at any time and maybe think about doing a presentation at our summit. We'd love to have you. We'd love to have representation from other RTOCs to show, that we aren't operating in a vacuum, that we are all together in this fight, that we're all doing, I think, so many things that we can celebrate together as well. We don't often get a chance to do that. Our summit, also, we have a mix of sessions, and we also have a mix of cultural activities. If you click on the links, you can see some of those. We will interrupt our broadcasting from time to time to do cultural presentations. We're going to do some traditional corn husk weaving demonstrations. There's going to be dancing, drumming. You'll get to see a little bit of our culture in Eastern Washington and Northern Idaho coming through. They're hosting this session, this year's summit. So again, thanks, and you guys have a wonderful rest of your week and a great weekend.
Thanks, Randy.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, Chris, for your help.
Yeah, and just noting to the audience, we will save the chat for Randi and Rick to take back and maybe answer later. So thank you, everyone.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.